Not as of November 19, 2024, when the city council voted to establish the city as a sanctuary city, which honestly shocked that wasn't already the case beforehand, considering its Los Angeles.
Bullets of protesters moving them on through the heart of LA.
You just shut the fuck up! You okay?
I propose we surrender that officer to the Australian authorities. Why? Because there are several certainties I have learned in my studies over war, and they are as follows. Never touch America's boats. Never threaten a Canadian with a war declaration already backing him. Never discuss bombs with an Irishman. A drunk Scottish soldier is more lethal than a Navy SEAL. One squad of Russians is the original DC Suicide Squad. All a Middle Eastern fighter group needs is a Toyota, AK-47, and an RPG to make the entire world lose their shit. And there are 2 islands which produce war criminals in waiting on this earth. Kiwis are very few, but fucking lethal. And Australians square up with kangaroos because they get bored and couldn't find a fucking crocodile.
Let it go. Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
And this asshole cop, for shits and giggles, decided to pop a round into an Australian journalist. No, I don't put the qualifier of non-lethal on it because anything shot out of something using compressed air and heavy force upon very fragile makeup of the human body can kill, or at least maim or cause serious bodily harm, such as, losing an eye, maybe even an entire limb. Just because it doesn't pierce doesn't mean force just dissipates on the skin. Now that we can all agree on that, let's get into what is going on in LA, what prompted this, and what sparked the response that led to protests, and what has been the response from the government so far, local, state, and federal. But before we cover that, I do know that the international response believes that you should raid that subscribe button, or else I will be left no choice but to send the crayon eaters, aka the Marines, to your home to collect you for violating the rules by invoking the I haven't subscribed Insurrection Act. First, some context. Los Angeles is huge, and that is just the city, not the county. LA County is 3 times larger than Rhode Island, and LA County has a population which is larger than some 40 individual US states at nearly 10 million people. So when someone says a protest of 100K is somewhere in the city, there is a higher likelihood of someone living in LA saying, well, I don't see it, and I drove around for a good while, and them not actually jerking you off. I mean, this is why earlier in the year, LA County had like 3 different wildfires going on, and everyone not there was looking at the news and saying to themselves, Jesus Christ, LA must look like absolute hell. Yet your favorite influencer was likely posting photos from an LA beach with clear skies and an infinitely overpriced smoothie from Erewhon talking about life is great, leaving you utterly confused. Which, I don't care if Jesus designed the smoothie or shake or whatever, I'm not paying $20 for a fucking smoothie. Now, due to the size of LA, you can probably imagine that whenever ICE deploys itself into the area, even if everyone shows up to the office that day, they will still be spread thin. Now, in the normal inhumane circumstances, local police, whether Beverly Hills or LA police or whatever, can act as a subsidy. Yes, I said inhumane, because usually police are inhumane when it comes to assisting federal authorities. Not as of November 19, 2024, when the city council voted to establish the city as a sanctuary city, which honestly shocked that wasn't already the case beforehand, considering its Los Angeles. Not sure if you're aware, but the connotations of a city being named something in Spanish usually means that city has a shit ton of Hispanic heritage and therefore likely a shit ton of communities which are Latino based. And by that logical conclusion, a shit ton of communities which have migrants in them, documented or undocumented. Not to mention, LA has several pretentious areas with pretentious rich douchebags who've sold their soul to the point they can afford to live in actual areas of the county which are cordoned off from the homeless and poor with actual fences, walls, and natural barriers like Bel Air or Hidden Hills, which are actually cordoned kind of off from county. Unlike, Hollywood. People think Hollywood is all glitz and glamour. Hollywood is the part of LA that is basically just gentrification sitting atop a shit show. And those areas need staff, and usually the norm for rich people anywhere is hiring someone's abuela or tia to keep their house clean and take care of their children, and hiring someone's abuelo or tio to keep their yard and maintenance in top shape. So it's strange that LA was not already a sanctuary city to me, but of course there are many factors surrounding who determines that, and so forth and so on. So we all know the Trump admin has been deploying ICE, Homeland Security investigation agents, and any additional forces they can get in on the fascist train of mass deportations into the game in order to round up undocumented and documented migrants for deportation. Sure, a small percentage are for sure criminals doing some very heinous shit. That is the normal factor for literally any group of people over the number one. Someone will carry out something that another person will consider a crime, or is actually accepted generally to be a crime, because that's how human populations work.
You betray the law!
But not only is that number very small, I'd much prefer they endure our legal system and prison system for their crimes committed here before we send them on back home to countries that may not even persecute them. Might just let them off the plane, take custody, spend a weekend in jail there, and because their crimes and evidence is all back here in the United States, which likely isn't giving any information over or sending any witnesses to testify in a court where we don't have jurisdiction, the country they are in will probably just end up letting them go. Mind you, these countries have legal systems just like us. Don't assume a vacuum and that they get dropped off in the middle of war zones. Not how that works at all, so it isn't like these places wouldn't try them if they had actual jurisdiction over any supposed crimes. America is not the only fucking civilized place on Earth. Hell, North Sentinel Island is more civilized than some places here in America, and they kill you for getting within 100 yards of their island if you don't have a coconut.
Flick!
Oh, fuck!
But these dragnet operations to deport supposed criminals are doing wise whilst catching up people working construction, maintenance, landscaping, city services, contractual jobs, and simple retail services. People, mind you, who in many cases not only have documentation and therefore while working have to pay taxes. Yes they do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
This is why the IRS was made to work with the immigration authorities by the admin, because migrants pay billions yearly into the system they cannot really get anything out of, including Social Security. Someone's grandma is feeding your retired racist great uncle who calls the Meals on Wheels delivery driver who is of mixed race and inbred and tests the food by feeding it to his senile blind dog. Yes, someone's documented but non-citizen, whatever the that means, grandma is contributing to allowing his racist ass to keep on pushing.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
One of these recent operations saw ICE going into a heavily Latino populated area of Los Angeles on June 6, rounding up documented and undocumented migrants and considering the recent actions of ICE, likely legal green card holders, visa holders, people on vacation, and of course, US fucking citizens who just so happen to come from Latino heritage. They took 44 people in total, including the president of the Service Employees International Union, David Huerta. These people were taken to the downtown immigration building and reportedly were being held in a basement with little to no access to food, water, legal representation, and fucking lights reportedly. Which, describe a Saw movie for me without calling it Saw.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What was a crowd of just a few hundred protesters to this action grew into a crowd that had had enough. Police used tear gas, pepper spray, and flashbangs along with their typical beat 'em motherfucker methods to clear the area once the crowd began to more aggressively protest. Following the morning, on Saturday, plans were made for a raid at another retail location, possibly another Home Depot. And considering the modern age of social media, this spread quickly. People gathered and these Border Patrol agents planning to possibly carry out a raid street fled under rocks at cars and possible conflict. Police and sheriffs were called in to disperse these crowds, but because LA is not with the bullshit, and again, a city which is not in chaos until the feds showed up, as well as a sanctuary city with a large Latino presence, this time the protesters were willing to play the all-day game. At some point, more protests broke out in other areas of the city. Again, city is so damn large, many people probably didn't even know that these two protests were happening outside news sources and social media. So when Trump tells you that the entire city has fallen into chaos, many Angelenos were wondering what the fuck he was talking about. At some point, a Waymo or two was set alight or damaged, the only danger there being, I believe, there are electric vehicles, and so they can make a big boom if, that battery goes crazy. Not to mention, mask. You need to wear a mask around those things, because they got more GoPros per capita on them than GoPros on Mount Everest. Dead or alive. It's a Mount Everest joke. It's a bad one. It's a very bad joke. I'm sorry. Trump inserted himself that evening by instructing the deployment of 2,000 National Guardsmen, which, couple things here. One, the Insurrection Act of 1807 is one of the big things to determine when the president can deploy the National Guard in a federal mindset. Mind you, the National Guard of each state is technically that state's militia, and therefore the limit has to be high for the president to deploy it in this federal capacity, as the governor of a state is supposed to wield that power to prevent federal overreach. Wouldn't be a good idea if the president could literally summon military forces in each state without even having to call the National Army. And again, these protests, as much as the news has made it seem, were fairly few and far in between of noticeability to the public, because LA County is bigger than some states and it has more people than fucking 40 states, individually, of course. And secondly, a couple burning Waymos, some graffiti on government buildings, and the standard fare American police v public groups and protesters is not enough, in my opinion, for deployment of National Guard on a federal level. If the past, 20 fucking years are anything to go by. I mean, Trump wasn't involved heavily nor pushed for the deployment of the National Guard during January 6th. When the very center of government itself in this country was under attack, with people calling for the heads of Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Schumer, and Mike Pence.
Hypocrisy, my friend.
Which, can we stop living in this era where I have to defend or agree with fucking Nancy got too big a titties for an elderly woman Pelosi? Or Chuck, please put that fucking flip phone to rest, Schumer? And Mike, what a boring son of a bitch, Pence? Also, AOC, you took a bit of a while there to endorse Mondani, and you seem to be committed to testing out this presidential pathway thinking. I will tell you right now, fucking stop. Okay? I'll leave it at that. Just stop. Fucking commit to the cause and remind Bernie who the fuck he is, because he said that these protesters were basically just unjustified in everything. If you are meant to be president, AOC, you will. But Jesus H. Christ, you are slowly starting to worry the fuck out of me. But where was the same smoke for those people, Trump?
Has he offered to withdraw? Can they withdraw from the process?
I'll tell you where. Nowhere, because they were for him, even if they were breaking down law and order itself at the very heart of law and order in this country. Which, you could argue that that is not the case, and you would have the merit of an argument. But that's not the conversation for today. The protesters in LA are doing the same thing, and laws can be wrong. Slavery was a law. Segregation was a law. Many states have laws that say a 13-year-old must carry a child to fucking term, even if they know that the child is likely going to die as a result of carrying the child to term. A law can be wrong, whether morally or simply against the natural progress of society. But who determines and affects the course of these laws? Morality is, of course, the debate point. January 6th was to subvert a legal election for one guy. These LA protests are to defend the legal system of immigration, even with its flaws, and there are many, to ensure that not only are migrants' rights not violated, but also that citizens aren't made to be the next people that have their rights violated, even though some citizens are having their rights violated. Back to the timeline. Several things happened on Sunday that pushed this into a new level. Protesters had arrived at several immigration facilities in much larger groups, and even began to occupy parts of the 101 freeway. In the former locations, These protesters were met by National Guard, who simply held a line of non-crossing for protesters, while in the latter, their local police, sheriffs, and highway patrol were deployed to meet the protesters, which there was video footage of mounted police, not sure if this was Saturday or Sunday or Friday, but they were actively trying to get the horses to trample a protester, not knowing they were being filmed likely, but also the horses were sort of refusing because they are trained not to trample people, and also just generally, don't trample people unless they feel bothered. That's just how horses work. But the cops kept trying, which it's insane that a horse has more fucking humanity than a cop. I mean, sure, cops can easily switch over to asshole bullies, but have you smelt a horse's shit before? That is clearly not something human. Even on their worst days, full of Taco Bell, a human cannot produce such a smell. And even then, the horse, which is clearly not human, had more humanity than the asshole sitting on top of him. Eventually, as Sunday's protests started reaching their zenith, including shutting down half of the 101 freeway by the police in order to challenge the crowd continuing to attempt to enter it and take control, Secretary of Defense and all-around gold medal alcoholic Pete Hegbich stated that a Marine battalion was on standby to be deployed. And even Trump announced he wouldn't be against an arrest of Governor Gavin Newsom. Look, I fucking despise Gavin Newsom even more than most Californians, and not only am I not a California resident, I would never ever stay there long term because I would go on a rampage if 10 bucks of gas only got me 40 miles in my fucking tank.
No, 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 hell no, 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 I refuse, no. No.
But also, the moment governors face the threat of arrest, fuck life support, a country has had the plug pulled. Which I have said that personally, I am begging and praying I am wrong. But I believe this country at most will maybe make it past Christmas, and then the crisis level will reach too high a point. But the threat of arresting a governor not only proves me wrong, as it's, happening so much earlier than I thought it would, it also, being something Trump claims he wouldn't be against, is a sign of confirmation that not only is he manic, but his ego is ready to truly end this country's supposed commitment to law and order. Now, as of time of recording on Tuesday, 6/10, the protests have continued. The National Guard is still deployed despite the request of Newsom and the mayor to stand them down and let police, sheriffs, and highway patrol handle the situation, which they are more than capable of fucking doing. Have you seen the budget of just the Los Angeles Police Department alone?
What you gonna do, Jerry? Show me the money!
It has a higher budget than several countries' militaries. But they have also asked for the raids to be ended. Monday also saw the arrival of a Marine unit, which is currently staying in makeshift areas due to Trump not making accommodation for the deployment of these units. So much for being for the troops, huh? So much for that, huh? You can't even get them a nice hotel in LA to just prop up in for the time being. And the border czar and living example of a left nut having gained sentience and leaving the body of an old man no longer able to use his Viagra prescription, Tom Homan, has flustered here and there while supporting the decision from Trump.
So I certainly think the president's acting within the confines of the law. I mean, I'm on phone calls every day, and these lawyers are making these decisions, so I stand by it.
But I think some people may look at that and say, well, one, you know the law very well. Obviously, you worked in deportations when President Obama was in office. You're now back in this role.
I know immigration law very well, but I do not. I'm not an expert on constitutional law or insurrection law or national. That's out of my lane. I simply am thankful that whatever President Trump decided, that was backed up by attorneys in the Department of Justice and Department of Defense. I'm just glad he deployed those National Guards here because I think they're saving lives. I think they're protecting property.
No. He has been unable to correlate that with Trump's previous statements regarding the deployment of troops.
We have laws. We have to go by the laws. We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that, even in a Portland case. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor.
Hiding behind the fact that he knows immigration law and not insurrection law, but he is pushing for, accepting of, and encouraging of the actions that have been taken so far. He has contributed to this situation, so I don't know if he is just mad that he can no longer produce cum, but yeah, this fascist idiot is just that, a fascist fucking idiot. Will Trump Trump attempt to invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy more forces, including the military, against U.S. citizens, which, mind you, while the military police is trained in crowd control methods, it won't just be MPs from different branches. It will be the full-on military, and therefore individuals who are trained for the purpose of armed lethal fucking conflict. It will end badly. It will be the final collapse once that thing happens. And in the final collapse, a stain will exist upon this country so vile, so destructive, so acidic that it will never ever recover, in my opinion. If you are right wing and say they are getting what they deserve, I promise you, you will be next. I promise you. And I don't mean that as a threat. I mean that as historically, this is how this shit works. America is not some perfect, special, independent, isolated group. These guys are pulling the same things that we have seen countless times before by countless empires that consider themselves individualistic procurers of their own fate. It's all the same. If they succeed there in LA to subvert law, the next time you involve yourself in a January 6th style protest evolution into riot, the government, whether led by Republican or Democrat, can use this incident as precedent to declare you and your side having committed insurrection, and therefore the military will be called in to shoot and kill you. America's already had many Tiananmen squares before, during the Civil Rights Movement and many moments before, like when World War I vets protested for their rights and benefits, and they were proceeded to be run out of DC by the military. Let me end with this example you might understand, something many Americans probably can relate to. Many Americans avoid the doctor's office, whether a dentist or physician or whatever, even when they know something is wrong, even when they feel pain in an area or something along those lines. Part of the reason, of course, is it costs to go to the doctor. But at a certain point, you have to put the cost aside due to the pain and inability for Tylenol, ibuprofen, Advil, or even some good old liquid courage to help you through. And you just can't power through and wish to ignore anymore. Once you cross that point, you have to go. After all the tests and some heavy-duty meds, you finally start to feel the pain wash away. Hell, you likely even feel better and think to yourself, so long as they prescribe me something strong like this that I can take when the pain can't be managed, I'll be good. But then the doctors, the aides, the nurses, they walk in and they all have that somber look. It's cancer. Try as hard as you can once you know that it's hard to adjust to that new reality. Life isn't the same anymore, even if you have a high chance of beating it, even if you discover your insurance will cover the cost of treatment because you caught it with a fighting chance, and your family is committed right behind you, and you and yourself are willing to put up the good fight, and you beat it. But cancer is cancer. For the rest of your life, once cancer has opened the door, you will always have to hear the wind blow through it. Even if you've closed it as much as you possibly could, it will still break through. Just a little whistle, a little hum. You will always have the wonder and fear. What if it returns to take me? While I am in no way debating that this situational comparison has the same lethalities of each other, I am stating here and now, the impact is the same. Invoking the Insurrection Act or discovering cancer forever leaves that door open. Even if we survive it, we'd still hear the wind from that open door. But if we open that door because a couple of fucking Waymos got burned, I'm going to be fucking livid.